Hey there, Jordan with Status Coup. Delighted to be joined by Mamadou Diallo and his attorney, Mike Ludwig. And Mamadou, this is the second time I've interviewed you, so I'm going to kind of do a quick recap for those who don't know the story. But earlier, during kind of the worst of the pandemic, you were working at Tesla as a sales individual. From what you were told and the numbers you saw, you were kicking ass and taking names, and one of the best salespeople they had in this particular region. But then, unfortunately, you had some health issues. So, why don't you kind of describe, the sequence of what happened?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I just want to start off by saying working for Tesla was a dream. I really felt like I had achieved something, and I was fully invested in working for this company for the remainder of my life. I was really, really invested. However, after the first few months, the onboarding period, everything was pretty rosy. It was pretty straightforward from summer 2020 all the way until January. Summer 2021 all the way until January of 2022. That's when I suffered a seizure in store while I was selling in the mall a Tesla product. And I awoke in the hospital, and that's where my life changed. And it would literally never be the same again. In fact, I didn't think that would be the beginning of the end of my tenure at Tesla. But I returned to work around February 2022. And immediately then I knew something was amiss. I started getting treated differently by my managers. They started nitpicking on me for small things like leaving my tabs open and just having to go to the doctor. You had to excuse yourself constantly, or else you would be fired by Tesla. And there were all these hurdles to jump through once I returned back from the hospital.
And
And
how long were you out after the initial seizure?
I was out for about 2 weeks away from work at Tesla. And Tesla has an attendance policy where every 3 days you have to excuse your absence no matter what. So I don't know how they incorporate that into people who are unconscious, but that's their ruling company wide. So I had to adhere to that, and I had to keep excusing my time out, keep excusing my time out. FMLA was very little help at Tesla. They actually rejected my claim for assistance, saying that I didn't provide sufficient evidence, even though I had a seizure in the store. And Tesla called the ambulance and sent me to the hospital.
And as much as you want to share, was that the first time you've had a seizure? What did the doctors tell you? Because
That
that's
was,
obviously scary.
yeah, that was my first seizure ever that I knew of. They said that I may have had other seizures while I was sleeping, but I never had a seizure in front of everybody in a mall setting with thousands of people walking by. And luckily, a nurse was walking by the Tesla store at the time, and she actually saved my life. She just happened to be walking by. And the doctor said that I had epilepsy since birth, they think. It just manifested itself at that moment. And it's something that can happen to anybody at any given time. So that was really, really scary. And just trying to deal with that, I had no help from Tesla at all. And if you fast forwarded all the way basically to June, throughout that time, I had gotten promotions from my two managers, the two bosses of the store. I got promotions. I got Tesla stock awards due to my performance. I had over $65,000 in Tesla stock, and I didn't see a dime of that. I sacrificed 15% of my paycheck for the whole time I was there into Tesla stock, and I didn't get anything back. My severance package was $1,200. It was
So
ridiculous.
let's rewind to that. So they're a little hostile, treating you different when you get back. Then let's fast forward to you were ultimately fired despite still
Performing.
uh, performing very, very well.
Yeah, it was really strange. I came back, and they saw that I was at the bottom of the leaderboard when I came back. From March until June, I worked my butt off. I mean, I sacrificed. I worked overtime. I did everything I could. I volunteered, and I was at the top of every metric that Tesla uses to score its employees. I was at the top. I have all the evidence I need with my name sitting at the top of each of these scoreboards. And basically, I mentioned this to my boss as I was getting fired via Microsoft Teams chat. And it didn't make a difference, apparently. They still picked a reason. The reason they fired me was performance reasons. And to me, that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's just lazy reasoning at this point. They could have picked anything else, but they picked performance reasons. And yet here I am sitting at the top of every performance metric, and I've printed out all that evidence. So I really don't know what they're going to say to that. You know, they're pretty much cornered. They cornered themselves. And, you know, just before I was fired, Elon, he sent out an email that I don't have, unfortunately, but he sent out an email stating to managers that if an employee was deemed not hardcore enough, they would be fired on the spot. And it was basically a threat, that email. And everybody saw it in the morning and didn't really make much of it. But that was in May. And from May to June, there were hundreds of people fired around the DMV area. And then everybody who got fired around the area kind of started working a year ago, and they all got stock options. Because at that time, when I got hired in 2021, Tesla employees got stock options, about what, $35,000, whatever, how many stocks that is. And that all stopped. Tesla employees do not get stock options as of January 2022, January or February 2022. They don't get any stock options, nor do they get commission. So when I got fired and all those other people got fired, they were usually just 1-year-old hires. That means that all their stock options Tesla took. Because in August, all of our stock options were to vest, and we were all about to get $10,000 and up dollars. Nobody got that. Elon bought Twitter right after all of that. So. And
before we move on to where things are right now, could you kind of talk about when you came back, was there things that managers were giving you grief subtly or directly? I don't know if you had to have follow-up doctor appointments, if you had to have any, you know, extra provisions due to your seizures. Was there things that maybe they could interpret as you not being hardcore enough that most, you know, other people might just say, well, the guy just had a seizure.
Yeah.
So he needs some.
Absolutely. When I came back, I had tons of doctor's appointments. When I was at the hospital the first time I had that seizure in January, they also realized that there was something amiss with my heart. And there was a strange connection between the epilepsy and my heart because my BPM was around 35 beats per minute, really low. So they installed a loop recorder on the spot to monitor my heart for the next 5 years. So with that being said, I had a lot of follow-up tests. I had EEGs scheduled. And each time it was really hard to get the time off to go do that from Tesla. Because first you had to get the approval, and then you had to go excuse yourself for the days that you missed. That being said, February I came back. I was told to come back by my boss. So I came back to the store. I couldn't log in. I just kept getting denied. And I told my boss this, and he said to reach out to IT. I reached out to IT, and they said that they're filing a complaint against HR at Tesla because employees do not know what to do when they come back. HR can unlock employee accounts, and IT cannot when they're coming back from leave. So I was told to write down my hours, and I would get paid later, and to work the whole day. These were all recorded by me. I have emails, all the evidence I need. But basically, I had to work that day, mark down my hours, do my job, and then leave. And I didn't come back to work until, was it a month later, when everything got sorted out back end.
Mm-hmm. So let's, I think there we go.
You guys?
Yeah, I lost you for a second.
Okay, good. Yeah, Tesla was very discombobulated for me coming back. They were all over the place. They didn't know what to do. No one knew what the procedures were. HR was non-responsive. You know, it was a real mess. And then from that point on, they just one of my managers kept attacking me for little things. Again, keeping too many tabs open, using my cell phone to sell cars for Tesla, even though that's what I was trained on. Um, he's told me one event that really did it was I came to work in the morning after, still getting used to driving, because there was a 3-month ban. That's the law. If you call 911 and have a seizure, you get a 3-month ban on your driver's license each time. And if you have more than 3 seizures within a 6-month period, you lose your driver's license. So I was getting used to driving again, because I just haven't done it for a while. I was low energy. I was just really pushing myself to not get fired by Tesla and to perform. I come to work in the morning, and Tesla's understaffed at this point. They fired quite a lot of people, and they just refused to hire. They're trying to save money. My manager asked me on the text. I told him I'm here at work. He texts me and tells me to go to Virginia because they're understaffed and they need support. I told him that I just drove 45 minutes to work. He knows that I'm not feeling that great. He knows I'm weak. And supporting at delivery is physical. You're outside, you're moving around, you're rushing, delivering cars, whatever. And I told him that I'm just not feeling well enough to do that. Is anybody else available to take my place? And he said no. Everybody was just ignoring me. Nobody wanted to take my place. And I basically said, I can't go do that. And we were supposed to have a meeting beforehand just to talk about some of the things that he had issues with, like the tabs being open, me using my cell phone. Just for me, I didn't feel like I was doing anything egregious. I was just doing my job, and I kept getting in trouble for little things all of a sudden. So we have this meeting, and he tells me, my manager tells me that I can't keep using my disability as an excuse, because I told him that I'm just not feeling well enough to go do a physical labor, which isn't even in my job description I'm supporting. And that just threw me off. I mean, to hear your manager say that you can't keep using your disability as an excuse, it doesn't make much sense to you. And I didn't start shouting, and we didn't start a shouting match. It was just more questioning. I was asking him, what did I do to deserve this kind of treatment from my manager? And it was like he had an agenda. He just wanted me gone. And I told him, I feel like you're going to fire me. I feel like you're going to fire me. And he said, he's not going to fire me. This isn't anything. We're just having a disagreement. He thinks the best thing to do is for me to go home and come back to work tomorrow. And I told him, you're going to fire me. I know you're going to fire me. I went home. The next day, I get a call via Microsoft Teams chat from HR and my boss, and they fire me on the spot for performance reasons. And then not a minute later, the same boss who just fired me calls me and tells me I never did anything wrong. I know his feelings for me, and we're at will state, and they can do anything they want, and I shouldn't do anything silly. I think obviously meaning sue, and he'll help me get a job, et cetera, et cetera. And I have all that recorded as well.
So Michael, I'm I'm not an expert on employment law, but this seems pretty straightforward to me. In America, obviously different states have different laws, but one general law is you're not supposed to be discriminated against for, health issues. So when he's being told, stop using your disability as an excuse and things like this, legally, it seems that Tesla essentially saw him as a liability, or, he's not, quote, hardcore enough. Can you talk from the legal perspective here? There seems to be a lot of problematic things as far as Tesla's response to Mamadou's seizures and health issues.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. Thank you. And I think I can start with what Mamadou kind of picked up on a little bit. He was saying that this was an at-will employment state, which is true, that Virginia, as most states in the United States, are at-will employment states, which means that an employer can terminate an employee for any reason or all, or even no reason at all, so long as it's not unlawful. And so that here is where we kind of have that rubber meets the road in this case about why, it's our contention, and I think we have good reason to believe that Mr. Diallo's termination was actually discriminatory. And so in the correspondence, without getting into it too much, in the correspondence we've had with Tesla, with the other side, it's they know they can't basically say, yes, we terminate him because of his disability, and they're not trying to say that he was physically unable to work, because that's not true. That was never really discussed. So what they're trying to do in their kind of defense, and what our, how we can go around that, is that they are essentially trying to say that this is a business decision. This is, Tesla's ultimately deciding, well, he's just not, cut out for you, as you said, he's not hardcore enough, and they're trying to kind of make that an ephemeral thing versus it being, specifically he can't work because he's disabled or because he has, this disability, which is, again, not the case here. So legally, what the specific law that we've filed under, and what is relevant here, is the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, the ADA, which is what specifically says that when an employee is qualified as a disabled employee, such as Mamadou is here, that he cannot be treated differently, or he cannot be discharged unlawfully based on that protected class, which is his disability. And so legally, to give kind of a overview of what the actual, how we're drafting his claim and how to have a claim here, is that there's about 4 elements to making that Americans with Disabilities Act discrimination claim, which is 1, membership of a protected class based on his disability, which Mamadou has here, no question. 2, the fact that he was discharged or that an adverse employment action occurred here, which also is unquestioned. The third element is to show that at the time of this adverse employment action, he was performing at a level that met his employer's expectations. Here, we also do have that. I know it's Tesla's disagreement with that, but we have contemporaneous documents saying that there was no issue with his work performance until after his disability issues. And my apologies, my wife is making a smoothie, I think, in the background, if you can
No problem.
hear that. But and then the fourth element is that the discharge occurred under the circumstances that raise an inference of unlawful discrimination. And here, I think that's where we really have evidence to show that, because this is a case where Mamadou was a good employee. He was working well for Tesla, and that the but-for cause, the only reason that really he's no longer there, these adverse employment actions happened, was because of his disability and because of Tesla's inability to basically accommodate him for that. And so, because this is an at-will employment state, the employer, Tesla, is going to try to say, well, this was our own kind of prerogative, our own business prerogative choice. And unfortunately, courts can be a bit receptive of that. That's very common in employment law, is that an employer is going to try to say, well, this was our decision. This was a reasonable business decision. We had the choice to do that. And courts can sometimes be afraid to kind of go in and kind of try to make a judgment call on that business decision. But here we don't have that. Here we have a case in which Mamadou was clearly a qualified disability individual under the ADA, and that he was terminated because of that. And there was no issue with work performance before that. So here, that's kind of where the rubber hits the road, as I said before, is that we can show that there's that causally the only reason for that his termination was ultimately his disability, and that this is not going to be a business judgment call from Tesla.
Right. And where are you in the legal proceedings now? Because obviously, like you said, courts and judges in American capitalism could, tend to leave a lot of open room for companies like Tesla to basically say, it's within our purview as a business decision. But what has been so far a judge's or the court's response?
So we are currently with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, and we do that because under the ADA and also Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is the large federal employment discrimination law that covers other protected classes such as race, age, sex, sexual orientation now, and gender identity, which are newer things that the court that has been ruled there. So under the ADA and Title VII, in order for a case to get to the point where you can file a claim in federal court, you have to first go through the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So it's kind of a required step before you actually get to a court. And the EEOC can be helpful sometimes because it forces an employer to respond. So it makes the employer have to respond, as Tesla has here. They've provided what's called a position statement in response to our charge, and we filed a rebuttal. And so where we are currently is that the EEOC is reviewing those two elements. And so it's actually an EEO investigation that's looking at this case. Again, unfortunately, in the kind of theme we have about employment laws here, the most common outcome of the EEOC is to get what's called a notice of right to sue, is that the EEOC essentially just says, well, we're not going to make a determination one way or the other on this case. We're going to hand this off to the federal court. And the EEOC does that a lot just because of how many cases they have. It's just kind of, they don't have the infrastructure to take on these cases. And they also know that, and again, sometimes they're, more friendly towards employers when they really shouldn't be. But so where we are right now is we file with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We're awaiting to hear back on that kind of investigation. I would say, if we hear back and there's a determination in Mamadou's favor, that would be great. And I would, I think it makes sense for that to happen. But just kind of the way the systems are, the most likely outcome is probably to get a notice of right to sue. And then the question would be to see if it makes sense to file in a federal court or not. And right. Yeah, as you said, the defense that Tesla has had in the EEOC is similar to what I would expect in court, is to have them essentially just try to put on the mask of, well, this is a business decision. We did everything right, or we did everything we could. This was an at-will employment state. We terminated him because ultimately it was not working out for us, as an employee, and that's why we did that. And courts shouldn't look into that. And so that's just kind of what we'd expect their defense to be, as it already has been.
And let me ask you, before I get back to you, Mamadou, I'm kind of curious on your part, because I have seen it is hard to get a lawyer to go up against Amazon, Walmart, Tesla. They all have an army of lobbyists, lawyers, and all the rest. And a lot of attorneys, not because they're bad people, but just don't have the resources and just probably chalk it up to I'll lose, or it'll be dismissed because, again, it's David versus Goliath, when private attorneys that are not, nationally renowned are going up against such massive corporate behemoths. So in this case, was part of the calculation to take this case that, like we said, check the box, check the box, check the box. You have all these things that are pretty straightforward in terms of seeming workplace discrimination to a disability.
Yes. I mean, I would say with Mamadou's case, so I work for the Spiegel Law Firm in Alexandria, Virginia. We're a plaintiff-focused employment law firm. So, as you said, we're not afraid to take on some of the bigger companies, corporations, if we have to. The issue with that is just the unfortunate kind of unequal kind of justice operating field we have with the justice system, is that, litigation is expensive. Attorneys can be expensive. And so when you're, as you said, David versus Goliath, a lot of times it's almost a question of resources about, can an employer have the resources to be able to continue this fight, continue this legal pursuit, because they know that an employer might, only give a certain amount of settlement or a smaller settlement because they know, well, if we just kind of run out the clock, we can usually survive this because, we have more resources than the employee does. Right. So in this case, I mean, Mamadou's case checked off a lot of these boxes. It was a pretty straightforward disability discrimination case. And I mean, it's been probably a year and a half since we've been working on this case. And unfortunately, it's just kind of how the case goes. And the one positive aspect of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is that it is not a full litigation trial. So it's not as costly as litigation. So if we're able to get a resolution through that, or some kind of settlement agreement through the EEOC, that is a positive. But it is just kind of a reflection of, employees are almost never going to have the same kind of resources as the larger employers do. And so while there's straightforward case law to show how an employee is discriminated against and how you can make that case, either before the commission or before a court, there's just a lot of hoops you have to jump through, or legal, there's a lot of just resources you have to have in order to pursue that fully.
Right. And Mamadou, let me ask you, I mean, it sounds like you kind of got, to a certain extent, a dream job before all this happened.
Yeah.
And then your life is kind of turned upside down through this health care. Just mentally, I mean, if I had a major seizure, I ain't getting back to work after 2 weeks, and I'm fairly tough.
Right.
So going back to work that quick, and then to be told things like, stop using your disability as an excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, just mentally, it's got to be very tough what you've dealt with here.
Yeah, it's devastating. I actually just managed to get health insurance 2 months ago since I got fired, because I almost moved.
And you got fired in 2022?
Yeah, 2020, June of 2022, and I just got health insurance 2 months ago. And
so during that gap, you've probably raked quite a lot of medical bills.
Oh yeah, I actually, as soon as Tesla fired me, 3 nights later I had a seizure, and my brother saved my life. And I went to the hospital down the road, University of Maryland, Largo, and Tesla had fired me. I had no more coverage, and I owe that hospital over $150,000. And then since then I've had over 6 seizures, and my heart stopped a few months ago too. So I'm just trying to make it to the end of this, and I really just want more attention to get on this case, because I see all these other cases that have all sorts of attention, and I feel like this is super important. And people are talking about Tesla unionizing. This is why it's important to unionize and workers' rights. People need to fight for this before they all get taken advantage of for some billionaire and his pipe dream. That's basically what it is.
I'd like to ask, because obviously I don't want to make this exclusively about Elon Musk, but at the end of the day, I mean, the culture starts from the top at Tesla. Yeah. There's been plenty of stories on union busting, horrible work culture, this whole hardcore business. He kind of did the same thing at Twitter, which has kind of become a disaster zone, if you ask me. Yeah. But it seems to me that in a lot of media discourse, Elon Musk is pre-Twitter was praised. This guy is changing the world for the better.
Yeah.
Electric cars, it's benefits to the climate. The other stuff he's done with space shuttle and all this stuff, and maybe some of that's true. But it sure does seem that there is a culture of, treating workers as just moving robotic pieces. Sure, you get the stock options, but at what cost?
Exactly, for your soul. You get the stocks and you trade your soul for the stocks, basically. I can't believe what I found out. I got. I didn't really believe in Elon Musk, to tell you the truth. I didn't join Tesla for Elon Musk. I joined Tesla because it was an honorable mission. I thought it was an honorable mission, and they were being honest. And it's just a major cash grab. That's my final opinion on it. It's a major cash grab. If you talk to some of the managers at Tesla came from Macy's, and they know another manager at Tesla. It's the real insider organization. It's who you know at Tesla, not what you know at all. Some of the people have never sold cars before. So with that knowledge, and I found that out, I just couldn't believe it. And that told me that these people are all here for the stocks. It's just stocks. It's just money. That's all they're here for. And these workers are nothing more than people boosting the stock. They're not even going to see a cent of it, and they don't know it, but they'll find out.
And since this has happened with you, I know you mentioned that around the same time, a couple hundred people were laid off. Yeah. I assume that you're not an isolated. I mean, maybe through this particular situation, but do you know of other colleagues in the DC area or elsewhere that have had issues with, employment discrimination or other issues with Tesla?
Oh yeah, one of my main witness was an ex-coworker, and they know quite a lot. They've been through quite a lot. There's a lot of sexual favors done at Tesla. There's a lot of weird background stuff done at Tesla, and you really have to watch your back. The knives are out. There's a lot of discriminating going on at Tesla. In fact, one of the weird things that I looked at, I typed in my name because Elon's from Africa. I typed in my name to see how many Africans work for Tesla, and there were two Africans as sales advisors at the time, and that kind of scared me. And with all the recent stories of the whole racism thing at Tesla and all that, it's all in my head. It's all playing a part. I don't know what's what really, but there's something amok on that company. It comes from the top down. It comes from Elon, and it's going to be exposed real soon, hopefully. Mm-hmm.
And for you going forward, has it been difficult to find work with this looming over your head? You trying to find work, given obviously you got some health issues?
Yeah, I've applied to over 110 jobs since I got laid off, and I haven't received a single job offer. So I'm totally broke. I'm depending on my family. It's a tough situation here. We're trying to hold it together. It's really rough. I don't know why. I go through multiple rounds of interviews. My first interview after leaving Tesla was at Lucid, because I want to get back at Tesla. And I went through multiple rounds of interviews, months and months. I went to the final interview and they loved me. They said they were going to call me. No answer, no response, not even a thank you, nothing. Same thing with the Porsche, same thing with high-end luxury brands. Go through multiple rounds of interviews. They find something out and they don't even message me again. Yeah. So what is going on?
When you say find something out, do you have reason to think that Tesla kind of
retaliate? Yeah, they put out like a message or some signal, whatever back end channel that HR has. There's something there about me that's just not cool with jobs, and I'm just untouchable.
Because I mean, the sales numbers are what they are. Is that correct, Michael? He performed fairly well as a salesperson there.
Yes, I mean, I would even say fairly well is a bit of an understatement, because he was one of the highest. When he returned to work in April 2022, he was ranked first by net orders on the Tesla Advisor leaderboard, and he sold 12 Tesla cars during that first week, during the week prior to his termination. So, I mean, he was terminated a week after he had sold 12 cars, and their argument is that he had these work performance deficiencies, so clearly that's where the factual dispute is, and we believe we have the facts on our side to show that he had again, very impressive, more than I would say more than impressive to be able to maintain his employment record with Tesla, with being the highest ranked in his among the salesmen there. I mean, and that's a document organized by Tesla, not even a document that Mamadou has. It's their own documents showing that he was one of the higher ranked in his position. And I note that Mamadou is doing everything correct here, because he is looking for other jobs. He's what we in the legal field call mitigating his damages. He's not also just sitting on his hands and thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna try to get a big payout from a court in here and just kind of let that work its way. He's been active in applying for jobs and doing that, so he's been doing everything right here. It's just the shame that we've gotten to this point.
Okay, I just want to add one thing though, because I'm pushing and pushing, but I really can't push anymore physically. I really do need to sit back and just get care, because I just went to the cardiologist, and there is something really, really wrong with my heart. And, there's just, if I were to be unconscious for large amounts of time, I don't know what the situation would be like, because I wouldn't be there to fight for myself. Tesla really put me in a terrible situation, and I just don't wish this upon anybody. I really want more light to be shown on this specific circumstance, because it's
also, I find it odd that you said you were, well, not just odd, troublesome, that you were fired. I mean, your health insurance was just cut off right away, basically.
Right away, gone. And then a few days later, seizure, and you're in a hospital, all the procedures, all these machines, so expensive. You're screwed. Yeah, nothing you can do. So, yeah, just sad.
And Michael, obviously, this isn't a political question, but it does seem to me that, you got the world's richest person here. He gets a lot of contracts from the government, does a lot of work for the government. It seems like this company might have the perspective that laws be damned. It doesn't really apply to us.
I mean, yeah, without going too far in saying something like that, but I would say that they've probably been conditioned to think that, one, because of fame, notoriety, and as I said before, just kind of expenses. Because in the reality, we can only operate so far in the system, in the legal system we have, and to do so is, just as I said before, resource dependent. So I mean, I would definitely think that they think of themselves either, if not, being above the law, they think that, well, we can make our defenses, we can kind of drag this out, and at some point, and this is not, unfortunately, this is not unique to Mamadou in the legal system, is that they're just going to think, well, if we just keep putting up defenses, even though they're not really, if it ever gets before a judge, it's going to be hard to actually defend that he was a poor performer based on his high ranking like sales within his team. But they will have the opinion that, well, we are so resource rich and the employees just don't have that we can just kind of wait this out, that we know how to go through the system to the point where they're going to, the employee is going to run out of resources, we're not, and then basically the case is going to have to end at that point. So it's just kind of them being able to wait that out, because they know that's the way the system works. You have to continue to push forward, especially as the plaintiff, and that takes resources. So they can just think, well, we know we have more resources than them. We can just outlast this until it gets to the point where they can't continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And last question, Mamadou. I mean, by dumb luck, not that this would happen, but let's say Elon Musk ever saw this, what would be your message? Because, he shares a lot of political opinions on Twitter, and, seems to think he has the answers for a lot of things, seems to be moving further to the right on the political spectrum. Yeah. But what would be your message? Because at the end of the day, we're not talking about a truck driver who lost his vision. And obviously you can't keep a truck driver who can't see. We're talking about somebody who had a major health problem, but was back at work in 2 weeks and was still selling cars. What would be your message to Elon?
My message to Elon Musk would be this, which would be to present this case to him and to see what he would say about it. What would be his answer? I would ask him why. Just why. I'd ask him one word, why? Why do that? Why did you do what you did? Why decide to do this? And I want to see his answer. That'd be pretty telling, because this case is pretty clear cut, and his answer would definitely be defining of character, I would say.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's also problematic. I mean, I'm no doctor, but I do know if you're having seizures with a corresponding heart issue, stress, economic stress, all the other stuff you got on you is probably kind of pouring more gasoline on that.
Yeah, all the time. I'm trying to contain myself and not go crazy, just shouting from the rafters and just going crazy. But, I do want to say, like, Elon's got a hold on people. My dad is a Tesla fanatic, even to this day. He still drives a Tesla. So I'm dealing with that and a lot of other stuff. I mean, he's got a hold on people. It's a cult. It's a 100% a cult. And I don't know why it is a cult, but it's lost. I'm lost for words regarding that right there. But Elon Musk is up to no good. So I would definitely keep an eye on him if I was the U.S. government. There's something else going on. He's going to leave Tesla and go full on the space thing. So we'll see.
Michael, lastly, I know you obviously the EEOC process takes a while. Ballpark, are you expecting an answer this year or some type of or them kicking the can elsewhere? I
would expect a response in the next couple months. And I note, and this is just, it's always helpful for listeners to always hear this, is that the EEOC does have an internal process. If it's been 180 days after you filed your EEOC charge and no kind of end in sight has occurred there, you can then ask for your notice of right to sue, which is then how you can go into federal court. So if it ever gets to the point where we think, okay, we just know we want to go to court, we don't want to continue with the EEOC, that is an option. But I would expect to hear back in the next couple of months. I mean, we actually had a correspondence with the investigator a couple of weeks ago, and that usually means that they're still looking at the case. And so every case is different. I mean, I've had cases that after a couple of weeks, they just end it and they give a notice of right to sue and kind of say on your way. I've had other ones that have taken, a year plus. But I would expect, because we've had correspondence with the investigator, to hear back in the next month or two, hopefully.
Yep.
And should have asked this before, but what are the damages that you'd be seeking?
I can just answer that, damages we have already been seeking are both lost wages, from the lost wages from the date of his termination, Mamadou's termination until now, because again, our whole legal claim is that but for the discriminatory acts, he would still be working there. He could still be working there because as we said, he's that's never really been in contention, is his ability to get to be a good employee there, as he was up until his termination. So we'll be looking for those lost wages. Be looking for compensatory damages, which are essentially called non-pecuniary damages. Those are emotional pain and suffering damages for obviously all the issues and the medical treatment that Mamadou's having to receive because of this. Because as we said, having all this stress and anxiety on top of these already conditions, can only be so much more stressful. And then also we'd be including attorney's fees as well, just to cover the expenses that he's had to have in order to pursue this case legally.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Please keep in touch, as this definitely needs to get way more spotlight and preferably more attention than the dumb, racist, fascist-friendly stuff Mr. Musk is pushing on X or Twitter or whatever. But thank you, Mamadou, and
Thank you.
definitely keep in touch on this.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you, and I'll be in touch for sure. Updates.
All right. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.